these children worked in the coal mines of Pennsylvania in 1911. They were often nicknamed the Breaker Boys because they worked long 12-hour days using coal breakers to separate slate and impurities from coal for as little as 8 cents an hour.
This is Fanny. She's 7 years old. She's only 4 feet tall, but she's working here with her big sister in Textile mill. They start work at 6 o'clock in the morning in Fayetteville, Tennessee, November 1910.
This is 9-year-old Minnie Thomas. She works long days cutting sardines. There is her work knife. She earns $2 a day in the cannery packing room, often working late nights in 1911.
And here is a young driver in a mine from West Virginia. And this photo was published in 1908. So all of these kids, all of these children are part of a U.S. child labor history where many children were exploited by companies, working long 10 to 12 hours a day, sometimes 16 hours a day for as little as pennies a day. These kids were exploited until unions and federal and state labor laws protected kids. So from 1870 to 1890, child labor increased threefold. In 1870 was the first U.S. census that reported child labor stats, and 750,000 children worked. Child labor peaked in 1900 when 18.2% of all U.S. kids under the age of 16 worked, often at very dangerous jobs. And by 1911, more than 2 million American children worked, many of them again working 12-hour days or more, 6 days a week or more. And many of their jobs were dangerous and unhealthy working conditions for very low wages. Most didn't go to school or went to school part-time, and these kids really didn't have any time to be kids. And here are 3 young girls working as oyster shuckers. That means that they open shells all day so they can get at the meat to sell. They're in Port Royal, South Carolina in 1909. This country was built on the backs of slaves, immigrants, and child labor. Kids are even involved in this. And exploiting these children made a few Americans some of the wealthiest people on the planet. The U.S. manufactured $13 billion by 1899. And that's when the U.S. became the biggest manufacturing nation in the world. And why would companies hire little kids? I mean, geez, who targets kids? We have a name for people like that. And they can't pass out candies during Halloween, at least in my state. And by the way, that's an incredibly young Utah or Colorado miner. He does not look so happy about his job. So why are these kids hired? Well, are 9-year-olds going to complain? Will 10-year-olds start a union? What do you pay a kid, even if they're doing adult work? You pay them minuscule wages, next to nothing. Remember, this is before the legal minimum wage, where companies want to pay you less, but they can't because it's against the law. So what about health, medical, dental benefits for kids? No, this is part of the reason why you're hired kids, because they're kids. They don't have the skills to organize, and they are easily exploitable. They're smaller. And child workers often got hurt. Here is Neil Gallagher from Pennsylvania, who worked since he was 9 years old. He made 83 cents an hour by 1911. But in 1904, his leg was crushed between mining cars and had to be amputated. He received $0 from the company. $0 because no laws were available to protect the workers. And this is Phoebe Thomas. She sliced her thumb and was given no time off. She even worked the same day she was injured. This is 12-year-old Clinton Stewart. His hand was cut off by the mowing machine in 1915. And Harry McShane of Ohio had his left arm pulled off and broke his right leg through his kneecap by a factory machine in 1908. A piece of heavy machinery fell on Giles Newsom's foot, causing him to fall. But as he fell, he smashed his hands in the machine tearing out 2 of his fingers. He was 11 years old and worked in a spinning mill in North Carolina. And here's Joe Frank, who broke his arm in a Massachusetts mill belt accident in 1916. And Frank's legs were cut off by a coal mine motor car in West Virginia in 1910. He was 14 years old. Again, these kids are part of an era where companies didn't care. They had little to no regard for the workers and no legal responsibility to keep the workers safe. Hundreds of thousands of workers were killed or maimed each year, including children. Many were inflicted with chronic problems. In 1913, 25,000 workers died on the job and 1 million were injured. Now, these kids were abused physically and mentally. Kids aren't set up to do this. This isn't natural. But they helped make a few Americans some of the richest people in the world, while many Americans starved. And probably the most famous and hideous images come from child coal miners. They worked extremely hard, destroying their young bodies. Many developed breathing and other chronic health problems. So take a look at these children working in a Pennsylvania coal mine in 1911. You can see how filthy they are. The black suit smearing their young faces, breathing in the soot all day. They look absolutely miserable. And these kids look miserable too. I'm sure some of you listening to this hate your job, but this job was tough. And this is what you get without government regulations. You get exploitation of workers. Now, the Breaker Boys are probably the most famous child miners, where young boys sat on hard planks for 12 hours plus, separating coal from impurities. Anthony Shorty Slick used to be a breaker boy. He remembers being bent over all day as a 12-year-old. And he remembers the Suede boss who would beat kids with a rod or broom when kids didn't work fast enough. And you can see it right here in this image. He was scared, and I would be too, with that rod. He says he made 8 cents an hour. And most boys had no fingernails because they were torn off by the work, torn off by the conveyor belts and the coal. His hands were completely destroyed, and they were allowed no gloves. The boys were usually 8 to 12 years old, and sometimes as young as 5 or 6. But in 1885, a Pennsylvania state law required coal breakers to be at least 12 years old. Government by the people and for the people.
At 8 cents an hour, you didn't wear gloves. You didn't dare. You wasn't allowed to wear gloves. Your fingernails, you had none. The ends of them would be bleeding every day you come from work. So we fashioned out amongst ourselves, those boys, got old electric wire, burnt the insulation off and fashioned a little stick, twisted around, made a finger, and then used to slide them over, at least 2 fingers on each hand, protect the 2 longest fingers, and that was a big protection to the nails. You were allowed to use them, but gloves never. And I'm telling you, it was a living hell.
So be sure to read the excerpt from John Spargle's The Bitter Cry of the Children, published in 1906, found on Canvas or anywhere online. Working the coal breakers is exceedingly hard and dangerous. Crouched over the chutes, the boys sit hour after hour, picking out the pieces of slate from the coal as it rushes past. From the cramped position, most of them become more or less deformed and bent back like old men. John Spargle, The Bitter Cry of the Children. Now, as we end this lecture, what's probably the second most famous images of child labor are kids working in the textile mills. Many of them are little girls, and here is a spinner in the Globe Cotton Mill in Augusta, Georgia, in 1909. Already by 1820, children were more than 40% of the mill employees in New England. And here was another spinner at the Whitnall Cotton Mill. She made 48 cents a day in 1908, and she's 4 feet 2 inches tall. When she was asked how old she was, she hesitated, then says, "I don't remember," then added confidently, "I'm not old enough to work, but do just the same." What's even more incredible is the noise she had to endure. The work was hard, the pay was awful, and the working conditions were bad for her health. And in this case, let's focus on the probable hearing damage. Okay, listen to this. Can you hear this? Imagine working with this noise for 12 to 16 hours a day. Exposure to high noise levels, especially for extended periods of time, can lead to a variety of health problems, including anxiety, high blood pressure, permanent hearing loss, heart disease, and much, much more. And these are what these kids had to endure. And this is Sadie Pfeiffer. She's 4 feet tall. She's 10 or 11. It's unsure. She probably has worked the entire night. And at this point, she's worked for a year at the Lancaster Cotton Mills in South Carolina in 1908. Geez, I mean, just look at these children. They look frightened. They look abused. And their poverty made some Americans stinking filthy rich. But these child workers can't even afford shoes. That's America 100 years ago. Not anymore. Equality is everywhere. And here are some more young boys who were so short that they had to climb on the spinning frames barefoot. In this photo, they're fixing broken threads. And this is in the great state of Georgia, in the city of Macon, 1909. And here is Rosie in 1913. She's 7 years old, and she's worked full-time at a canning company. And her job starts at 4 o'clock in the morning, and she did not attend school. And I want to thank you for watching, and I really want to thank Louis Hine, the amazing photographer who took most of these incredible child labor photographs for many years as part of the National Child Labor Committee more than 100 years ago. Now, there is so much more to learn about this, the history of exploiting workers and how corporations behave unchecked. But we've reached the end of this lecture, so again, I'll thank you again. But whoa, what the heck is this? A child labor chain gang where black youth now work for free, and it's perfectly legal. This is the birth of free labor in the prison industrial complex in the freest and greatest country on earth. And this is after slavery, but they're still working for free. But don't even get me started on this, because this is another topic, but it is absolutely related to child labor, and this thing is complicated. We live in a great but complicated country. Again, thank you for watching. Enjoy your overtime and weekends and your overtime. Have a great day and be nice to